This fresh tragedy for the NASCAR community and the sports world as a whole. This sudden passing of Kyle Busch at just 41 years old has really sent shockwaves everywhere, and the chilling details are emerging from the 911 call.
Kyle Busch and Dale Earnhardt Jr. once hated each other so much that it reshaped NASCAR itself. But in an unbelievable twist, the enemies became friends. Just when it finally felt like the past was behind them, Kyle Busch was suddenly gone. And now, Dale is ready to open up about Kyle's final moments. How did two of the sport's biggest stars go from enemies to close friends before tragedy suddenly changed everything? And what really happened to Kyle Busch? Join us as we share everything Dale Earnhardt Jr. finally opened up about Kyle Busch's last moments. The final hours of Kyle Busch. At over 180 miles per hour, NASCAR drivers live inches from disaster every second. But nobody ever imagined Kyle Busch's story would end on a bathroom floor. On Wednesday, May 20th, Kyle Busch drove to the General Motors Charlotte Technical Center in Concord, North Carolina, to do simulator work. This was a completely normal part of his weekly routine. The kind of session Chevrolet teams like Richard Childress Racing use that facility constantly for engineering and race preparation. But inside that simulator, something went terribly wrong. At approximately 5:30 in the evening, someone at that facility called 911. The Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office later released the audio of that call. The caller told the dispatcher that there was an individual experiencing shortness of breath, who was very hot, thought he was going to pass out, and was producing a little bit of blood and coughing up some blood. The caller said the person was on the bathroom floor, but was still conscious and awake. Yet he asked responding crews to turn off their sirens upon arrival and began giving directions inside the building. According to the Associated Press, Kyle was later transported to a Charlotte hospital, where the 41-year-old two-time Cup Series champion, who had won more races than anyone across NASCAR's 3 national series, was fighting for his life. By the next morning, a post appeared on Kyle's social media accounts from his family saying he had been hospitalized with a severe illness. The statement said he would not compete in any scheduled activities at Charlotte Motor Speedway that weekend. Richard Childress Racing announced Austin Hill as its replacement for the Coca-Cola 600. The statement from RCR said Kyle's number 8 Chevrolet would be ready and waiting for him when he got better. But only a few hours later, everything changed when a joint statement from the Busch family, Richard Childress Racing, and NASCAR confirmed the worst. Our entire NASCAR family is heartbroken by the loss of Kyle Busch. A future Hall of Famer, Kyle was a rare talent, one who comes along once in a generation. He was fierce, he was passionate, he was immensely skilled, and he cared deeply about the sport and fans. Kyle had passed away, but it was not until after 2 days that the cause of his demise would come to light. What exactly happened to Kyle? A sudden goodbye. On May 23, 2026, the family released the medical conclusion. A statement from the vice president of Kyle Busch Companies said, "The medical evaluation provided to the Busch family concluded that severe pneumonia progressed into sepsis, resulting in rapid and overwhelming associated complications." Sepsis, doctors explain, is not the infection itself. It is the body's overwhelming and extreme response to an infection. The immune system kicks into overdrive, begins attacking the body's own organs, and can lead to death in a matter of hours. That is how a man who was racing, winning, and laughing with his son on a Tuesday was gone by Thursday. What made the news even more heartbreaking was how close he had come to something different. Just hours before his collapse, while the medical emergency was unfolding in Concord, NASCAR CEO Steve O'Donnell was in an internal meeting discussing a text Kyle had sent him on Tuesday. The text read, "Hey man, what do you think about an over 40 rule to be able to compete in all the Truck Series races next year?" Steve O'Donnell explained that NASCAR had originally put a limit on how many Truck Series races Cup drivers could compete in, because Kyle was winning so many of them. A restriction unofficially nicknamed the Kyle Busch rule. But while Steve and his team were deciding on letting Kyle in the Truck Series, he was already fighting to stay alive on that bathroom floor. Steve O'Donnell held a press conference at Charlotte Motor Speedway the next day. He said Kyle would probably be pretty pissed off if they did not race that weekend, so they were going to honor his memory by doing what Kyle loved most. He also called Kyle what many fans already knew him to be. "This sport is a badass sport," O'Donnell said. "Kyle Busch is an American badass." Richard Childress Racing also announced it would suspend use of the number 8 indefinitely. The statement said, "Kyle Busch was instrumental in the design of RCR's stylized number 8, and it has become synonymous with Kyle, and an important symbol for his fans and the NASCAR industry. No one can carry it forward to the level that he did." The number 8 is reserved and ready for Brexton Busch when he is ready to go NASCAR racing. That decision mirrors exactly what RCR did in 2001 after Dale Earnhardt Jr. died at Daytona, when they parked the number 3 until Austin Dillon was old enough to drive it. Kyle Busch was 41 years old. He left behind a wife, 2 children, a brother, and a legacy of 234 wins across NASCAR's 3 national series, more than any driver in history. And nobody, not his family, not his team, not his best friend Dale Earnhardt Jr., saw it coming. But who exactly is Kyle Busch? And how did he build such a legacy? When worlds collide. By the time Kyle Busch was 5, NASCAR already was the background noise of his entire life. His older brother Kurt was already starting to find his way into racing, and Kyle wasn't watching from the sidelines for long. Before most kids even understood a steering wheel, he was sitting in a go-kart, his small hands turning while his father controlled the throttle. And what made it more intense was the internal pressure building inside the same household. Because even though Kurt was first, Kyle would not accept being second for long. By 13, that mindset had already turned into results. Kyle was racing in Legends cars at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, winning at the local bull ring, and taking track championships in a way that made it clear this wasn't a hobby career. But NASCAR doesn't open its doors easily, even for talent like that. At just 16, Kyle attempted to enter the Truck Series at California Speedway and got shut out immediately for being too young before he could even prove anything on track. That moment mattered more than it looked like at the time, because instead of slowing him down, it hardened the trajectory. He graduated early and doubled down on the only direction he was ever really heading, and by age 18 he was in the NASCAR Xfinity Series with Hendrick Motorsports. He ran 7 races that year, earning 2 runner-up finishes and securing a full-time ride for 2004. His rookie season in the Xfinity Series was spectacular. 5 wins, 2nd place in the points standings, and Rookie of the Year honors. And then everything accelerated again. The following year, 2005, he moved up to the Cup Series with Hendrick Motorsports. He won Rookie of the Year there as well, and in just his 31st Cup start, he made history. At 20 years, 125 days old, Kyle became the youngest driver ever to win a Cup Series race, a record that would stand for years. And at that point, the sport had a star rising faster than the system could comfortably process. Kyle had to fight his way to the top. But what about Dale? How did he make his way into NASCAR history? And how did he meet Kyle? A different legend in the making. Dale Earnhardt Jr. entered NASCAR as a legacy trying to make his own name. His father, Dale Earnhardt Jr., wasn't just successful. He was the standard the sport measured fear against. With 7 championships and 70-plus wins, his nickname, the Intimidator, was a warning label. So when Dale stepped into that world, he was stepping into a shadow so large that it didn't matter how fast he drove. People were already watching to see if he could ever escape it. So he couldn't afford to fail, not even once. Dale started racing relatively late compared to most future Cup drivers, entering stock car competition in his late teens in a battered 1979 Monte Carlo he co-owned with his brother. There was nothing polished about it, just short-track racing where every mistake was physical, immediate, and expensive. That environment shaped him quickly, because in late models, reputation is not protection. Skillful talent is. Within a few years, Dale Jr. forced his way into the Busch Series full-time, and something unexpected happened. He didn't just adapt to the pressure of his name, he started to perform under it. With back-to-back championships in 1998 and 1999, Dale showed he belonged. And in 2000, he moved into the Cup Series. Dale did more than just survive his rookie season. He thrived. He won at Texas, won at Richmond, and became the first rookie ever to win the NASCAR All-Star race at Charlotte. He finished the season with 2 wins, 3 top 5s, and Rookie of the Year honors. The two drivers first shared a Cup Series track in 2005 when Kyle was a 19-year-old rookie, and Dale was already a 30-year-old established star with 2 Busch Series championships and a growing list of Cup wins. On paper, they seemed to come from different planets. Dale was the beloved son of a legend, carrying the hopes of a fan base known as Junior Nation. Kyle was the brash young prodigy from Las Vegas, fiercely competitive and unapologetically confident. The racing world took notice almost immediately. It was during that 2005 season that their early on-track battles drew attention. At Bristol Motor Speedway that spring, the two were fighting for a second-place finish when contact occurred between them. These were the kind of small moments that, at the time, seemed like routine racing incidents. But they planted seeds. The tension, barely visible at first, was beginning to grow. 2 years later, those seeds would go on to grow into a real rivalry between the two men. But how far did these men allow it to consume them? The breaking point. The rivalry between Dale and Kyle finally exploded in 2008, but the resentment had been building long before that season began. The first spark came in June 2007, when Rick Hendrick announced that Dale would join Hendrick Motorsports the following year. The move changed NASCAR overnight, but it came at Kyle's expense. He was the driver being pushed out to make room for the sport's biggest star. And for someone as competitive as Kyle, it felt deeply personal. A few months later, things got even worse at Kansas Speedway. Dale slammed into the back of Kyle's car, sending him spinning into the wall and destroying his championship hopes. Kyle finished 41st, furious that the same driver replacing him at Hendrick had now wrecked him out of title contention. Dale tried to reach out afterwards, but even that failed when the voicemail never connected. By the end of 2007, the tension between them was already boiling. Then came Richmond in May 2008, the moment that turned the feud into an all-out war. Late in the race, Dale and Kyle were battling side by side for the lead when Kyle's car got loose entering Turn 3. He corrected it, but the car slid up the track and slammed into Dale's door, sending him hard into the outside wall. The crowd erupted instantly as Clint Bowyer slipped past both of them to steal the win. Kyle insisted it was just a racing accident, but to Dale's fans, it looked deliberate. That single crash changed everything. Dale's fans turned on Kyle, with a level of hatred rarely seen in modern NASCAR. Death threats reportedly began arriving at his home. During one race weekend, authorities even received a warning that a man carrying a shotgun was heading to the track looking for him. Security became so serious that Kyle was escorted away in unmarked police vehicles, while an FBI agent reportedly followed him and his family for the rest of the 2008 season. Years later, Kyle still described the entire period as chaos. By the time NASCAR returned to Richmond that September, retaliation felt inevitable. The atmosphere around the race was tense from the opening laps, and eventually the two rivals found themselves battling near the front once again. Then, on lap 212, Dale answered back. Heading into turn 3, he tapped Kyle's rear bumper and sent him spinning across the track. The grandstands exploded. Later, Dale admitted the move came as much from pressure as from anger. He felt he had to respond. If he let it go, he feared people would see him as a driver who could be wrecked without ever fighting back. Ironically, the feud also created the identity that would define Kyle's career. The hatred from Dale's fan base turned him into NASCAR's ultimate villain and gave birth to the rowdy persona that followed him for years afterwards. Kyle later admitted that after Richmond, he officially became public enemy number 1. Instead of running from it, he embraced it completely. After years of wrecks, anger, and public hostility, one would think Dale and Kyle would never speak to each other. So how did two men who once could not even look each other in the eye eventually become close friends? Burying the hatchet. For years, the tension between Kyle Busch and Dale Earnhardt Jr. was impossible to hide. But over time, something unexpected happened. The hostility did not end with a dramatic apology or emotional showdown on the track. Instead, the wall between them slowly cracked through small gestures that caught Dale completely off guard. The first sign came during Speed Weeks in 2011 at Daytona. Kyle suddenly showed up at Dale's bus carrying a box of M, and Ms. Dale later recalled how random it felt. A few days later, he texted Kyle asking if he had been handing candy out to everyone in the garage. Kyle replied, "Nope, just you and one other guy." When Dale asked why, Kyle simply answered, "I don't know, thought you might want some M&Ms." It was awkward, simple, and strangely genuine. But it stuck with Dale because it revealed a side of Kyle few people ever saw. The gestures continued over the years. Before the 2015 Daytona 500, Kyle again knocked on Dale's motorhome door, this time bringing Valentine's Day gifts for Dale and his girlfriend. Packages of the new M&M's crispy candy. Dale jokingly tweeted about putting the candy in the freezer for 24 hours, just in case it was some kind of prank. But the meaning behind it was obvious. The same driver who once refused to make eye contact was now making deliberate efforts to connect. The real turning point came later in a private conversation inside Dale's motorhome. According to Dale, Kyle walked in and began talking about how each of them managed their racing teams. It sounds ordinary, but for the two of them, it changed everything. In a 2026 tribute, Dale admitted their relationship had been really challenging for many years, but said Kyle was the one who initiated the effort to fix it. That conversation accomplished more than years of forced civility ever could. By 2018, the reconciliation had become strong enough for both men to address their history publicly. On the 10th anniversary of the Richmond wreck that ignited their feud, Kyle arrived at the Dale Jr. Download podcast carrying donuts and beer. The two spent more than an hour revisiting the rivalry, including the death threats, the FBI protection, and the resentment that had consumed them for years. For the first time, they openly acknowledged that much of the feud had been fueled by misunderstandings. One of the biggest involved Kyle believing Dale had pushed him out of Hendrick Motorsports, when in reality, Dale had actually argued for Hendrick to keep him. That conversation became the moment they truly buried the hatchet. From there, the relationship evolved into something neither man expected. Dale later said they began appearing together at media events and laughing about the chaos they once put each other through. By 2026, their friendship had grown so strong that they were planning to race together. Dale revealed that Kyle was preparing to drive one of his late model cars at North Wilkesboro Speedway later that summer. A seat fitting was scheduled for May 29th at the JR Motorsports shop. Kyle reportedly could not stop laughing about the irony of it all. For years, his fans and Dale's had treated each other like enemies. Now they would have been cheering for the same car. But the moment never came. Kyle sadly passed away 8 days before the scheduled seat fitting. Reflecting on their friendship afterwards, Dale wrote, "My heart is broken for the Busch family. I will never be able to make sense of this loss, but I am thankful that we had found a way to become friends." Do you think fans treated Kyle Busch unfairly during the peak of his rivalry with Dale? Or did he fully earn the rowdy reputation he embraced? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.